So how this is going to work is I have a couple of questions that I just want to ask and throw out. And it's 30 people on the call. So in order for it not to get too crazy, I'm going to be watching the chat box. And when you're ready to speak, just say me. Or you can also raise your hand, and then I could also unmute you that way. And I'm just going to unmute people in the order that I see it. If you feel like I'm not seeing you, just type Taylor, I would like to say something, or me in the chat. Just get my attention, and I'll make sure that I'll make sure that basically that you get to speak. Okay, so I'm gonna unlock the chat for a second. So if you have a guest and they've been waiting to get on, have them get on now. I might still have to kick some people off because they are just like, okay, perfect. I unlocked it, so have them get on now. And anybody who just, okay, China's on, Nadia's on, Karen's on. Guys, I promise you, this has never happened to any call, never. But I want to make sure that we're all, you know, that nothing crazy is happening. Okay, I had to lock it back. I really don't want nobody crazy hopping on the call. Did your friend get on, Yanalise? Can you let me know in the chat box if your friend got on? Because I want to get the combo started. Okay. Okay, perfect. So I found this cute little graphic, or not cute little graphic, but I found this graphic online that breaks down the difference between introverts and extroverts, because tonight's topic is silent storm in the introverted leader. And I think it's such an amazing topic. And this basically is the hustle, and it was talking about introverts and extroverts in the business world particularly. So here's some big differences between introverts and extroverts. You guys can see it on the left side. I thought these were really, really cool because a lot of times we think of introverts as people who are antisocial, but it doesn't necessarily mean that an introvert is antisocial. It just means that introverts, they really they value, you know, more intimate situations. It doesn't mean that they just don't like people. You know, there are people who don't like people now, but that's not necessarily all introverts. So they basically they mentally rehearse before speaking. They have a few close friends. They learn by observing. They're usually intense and passionate. They tend to bottle up emotions. Now, extroverts, they are, you know, just simply the opposite, basically. And, you know, we all really know a lot about extroverts and different things like that. However, I feel like the introverts, we really don't hear too much from, and then we really don't know too much about them. You know, we really don't know we don't get to, I would say it's not as popular. You know, a lot of people are just really like, you know, they think of business and especially network marketing, they think of somebody who's outgoing, you know, somebody who is out there. But really, when I read this article, it's actually a really great article. They were talking about how a lot of successful business people are actually introverted. And so I just kind of wanted to set the tone for, you know, introvert versus extrovert. And then the first question I have is, what comes to your mind when you hear the topic silent storm, the introverted leader? What is something that comes to your mind? And then we'll kind of start the conversation from there and kind of just let it flow where it may. Does anybody want to talk first? Okay, Chef Marcy. Let's hear you, Chef Marcy.
I think the introverted leader speaks to people personally, like in person, instead of trying to speak like over the phone or like try to like text over it. They just like really personal relationships, like you said, to connect and feel that impact with that person and feel that energy personally instead of in a huge group of people. So that's how I feel like the introverted leader leads, by speaking to people individually and having time to like actually converse with them however long they want to.
All right, I love it. I love it. Anybody else? Okay, K Killer. Let's hear from Kat.
So when I think of the introverted leader, I think of someone who you would think of like the average person, like goes to work, chills, like very low key, but has major impact. Someone who isn't very so much in the limelight, someone who isn't thirsty for attention, someone who isn't really doing the most, but their impact does the most. Like they're low key, they're very subtle. Um, like if they go to a party, they're probably chilling. They're not the main one on the floor trying to twerk and do the most. Like they're just low key. Like they're cute, they're low key, like they just vibe out, but like their impact is great. Like they walk in a room and like they know how to impact. They go somewhere, their name is like positive thoughts. Like when I that's what I think of when I hear of the introverted leader. Like very low key but major impact.
Go ahead, D.
Okay, so when I think of like an introverted leader, I think of someone that like kind of piggybacking off what Kay said, but also they take more time to like think about things. Like sometimes when you're speaking, it's easier for like an extroverted leader to like come up with things or um go off of impulse, I guess you could say. But like an introverted leader, they would need like more time to think about things, and they're more like reserved.
Okay, I love that. I love that. I definitely agree with all the ladies. When we were talking about the topics and we came up with silent storm, I feel like that's a perfect way to describe an introverted leader because they may be, in the background, kind of laid back, but they're also very powerful, in that. There's also a lot of control and discipline in that as well. Not saying that an extroverted leader doesn't have that. It's just basically a different power. Like, how people just have different strengths? It doesn't mean that the other person is weak. It's just a different type of strength. And so that's what I think of when I think of, Silent Storm, the introverted leader. And I was actually doing a podcast a couple weeks ago, and someone asked the question. I want to ask you, ladies. Someone asked me the question. She said, Taylor, um, how do I talk about my business? And she didn't say what kind of business she had, but it kind of gave me the inkling that she had a product of some sort. And she was just like, how do I really talk about my business and promote my business when I'm introverted? Does anybody want to kind of take a stab at that? That was the question that she asked. How do I promote and how do I grow my business and I'm introverted?
Perfect, perfect. So it's me again. I'm not an introvert, but I feel like someone who is an introvert and they want to grow their business, they kind of do it like low key. Like they're not always necessarily posting about it, but like qualities within it get brought out. So like if it's on like a particular product, they may not always post a product, post a product, post a product, but they may like post things that lead you to thinking about the product. They might post like specific quotes or like certain things that get your mind going that like draw you to it. They might they might throw the product in there every now and then. They might like talk about them and then you're kind of like drawn to it. It's like you're more so drawn to the surroundings of it, and then you're like, oh yeah, that's a dope product, versus you just show me a product and I'm like, I want it. Like I feel like introverts advertise differently because like you said, they have a different personality. So they're not always like bold in the sense where when you want to talk about something, you're like, yep, this is what I want to talk about. So that's what it is. Like they're more like low key and subtle about it, but like you still get the point. Like they don't have to go in, tag 50 people on something to get clientele. Like the clientele is almost like word of mouth, like, yo, she's super dope. Like you should try this out. Like I feel like they advertise in that sense.
Yeah, I love it. I love that. Seriously, that was some amazing points, Kay, for real. I just want to kind of get a sense of who's on the call. If you're an introvert, put an I in the chat. Or if you see yourself as more extroverted, put an E in the chat. I just want to see, who we got on the call. And there's no right or wrong, just whichever way you kind of feel that you more so lean towards. Okay, I see a lot of introverted people in here. A mix of both, in between. Okay. The first person I saw that was kind of in between, she's a CEO. If you can talk a little bit, she's a CEO, why would you say you're in between? I just want to hear from you because you were the first person to say it.
Hi. Literally, I would just say that I'm a mixture of both. Simply because, being a part of this opportunity, like it just kind of like grabbed me out of my shell, being that like, I don't know, I just feel like, growing a business, I feel like you have to kind of be out there, but you can still, be in your shell at the same time. And it's just like, that's why I would say before this opportunity, I would say like really an introvert, but now, I'm in a position where it's just like, okay, I'm just trying to like, push myself out my shell every single day, knowing that, all right, this is time to get my business moving. Like I can't, stay in the background, forever. Like, yeah, pretty much like that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Hmm.
I would more so, even though people probably would not believe me, I would more so kind of see myself as introverted. And I know that may seem like, okay, Taylor, the woman there, but I really am like, after about, I kid you not, like, I joke around with this, like, with my friends, but after a couple, I was just talking to, who was that, B-Tay, I was talking to B-Tay and Marcy about this. And I was telling them, I'm like, I love when people come over. I love talking to people,
Hmm.
but after a while, I just really be like, okay, can you go home now? Like,
Yeah.
to like leave.
Yeah.
I loved our time together,
Hmm.
but we're at our limit. And I would really, really like for you to, but I love you. It's just, I've done enough.
Yeah.
Like, one of my favorite memes on Instagram, it says like, it's like it's a cartoon character at the door. And they were like, I've done enough peopling for today. So, like that's
Yeah,
literally
I know. Just.
so yeah, I agree. Like business just more so stretches you outside of that zone, but you can still be yourself. And I think that was one thing that really helped me in business when I realized, okay, I don't have to become a completely different person. I may have to grow, but I don't have to
Yeah.
change, who I am, at the root of it. So, who else said
Yeah, I
both?
totally agree.
Let's hear from Erica. Erica, if you want to, I'll unmute you. Tell us why you say a little in between.
I feel like, cause what you just said really just resonated with me. I like being around people, but then like after an hour or two, I'm like, all right, bet, go home. Like even at my daughter's birthday party, girl, I cut the lights out on folks. Like it's 9:00, you got to go. But the business as a whole makes you, because at first it was like, all right, bet, I do Forex. I told a little bit about it. But then once I started seeing myself grow, it made me want to get out there even more to, start talking to people about it and really putting myself out there, even though, but sometimes to this day, I'm still like, do I really want to talk to you? Like, do I still really want to approach it? Could I just send a DM? Just,
Yes, I do. No, that is so funny. Like, everybody in the chat box is like, yeah, that's me. Like, no, but for real, that really is. And I got a question, and then Faith, I want you to answer the same question. I got a question for you, and then Faith, you can answer right after her. But when you are like more in your introverted zone, and you're thinking, okay, I'm building this business, I want to move outside of that. What is that thought process, or what are some of the things that you do, or what are some of the things you tell yourself? Because essentially, you're kind of switching your mind about it, about how you feel naturally. Because if you're introverted, that means that's how you naturally feel. So, what is your thought process, or what are some of the things you tell yourself to move to the more extroverted side, since you kind of feel like you're in both? Oh wait, I gotta unmute her again.
Okay. Thanks. I said somehow you muted me. But yes, but far as the business side, I just try to think of how I'm able to help others, because if I remain quiet, then a closed mouth don't get fed, and I can't feed others if I'm keeping the plate to myself. So I have a lot of goals written up, just around my home, either that's about me, just life, just keep me on that positive track, just, keep me pushing forward and say, Erica, you know what? Those 3 no's, you got a yes coming. or you know what, even though you might not think that you're helping somebody, even just talking to somebody, seeing how their day is, just the smallest of things can help others in ways that I don't even recognize myself. So it's like when I'm being off to myself, like I'm gonna do not disturb for like an hour or two. Don't talk to me. I don't know. You know, somebody might be really trying to get on my line. Like, sis, I need you. I just need somebody to talk to. You know, and that what kind of pulls me out my shell, especially when I get that text message, "Hey, Erica, I need you," and I'm like, "Oh man, I'm picking the wrong time to be selfish with my time." You know.
That's good. From selfish to selfless is what you basically just said. That's really good. And that's a strong enough emotion for you to move to the other side. So I love
Right.
it. Faith, same question, Faith. You answer it. Same question.
I'm sorry, I just missed the question. I was getting the cutie out the
No,
bed.
you're good. So the question was, since you said you were a little bit of both, you know, introverted and extroverted.
Mhm.
The question was, is how do you move? What things are you telling yourself? What things are you doing to move when you are going from introverted to extroverted? You know, when it comes down to building the business, just in life in general. Because I said that you're switching your emotions. You know, so you naturally feel like I want to hear myself. What are you telling yourself to switch? To encourage yourself to switch, I should say.
I say it just really depends on.
Get your butt out the air and your knees out my couch. Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, Erica.
I say it just really depends on the situation.
Okay.
Because most of the time I say I've been pretty introverted. I've been pretty introverted for most of my life, and like someone mentioned earlier, ever since I, started this opportunity, it's led me to be pretty extrovert because I've never been the one to really be, talking in front of people. I've never been the one to start conversations. And now I'm really doing that a lot. Like I could be out in public at the grocery store and I'm talking to some random person for 15 minutes. So I say like, I'm a bit of both because of, certain situations. And that's for one, is an example. So.
Yeah, no, that's great. Keep it moving. So one thing that Erica said that I think is really important, especially for introverted people who are naturally introverted. And what she spoke about was kind of having that time. And for me, I created that time like in the morning. So my phone starts going off like constantly around 10 a.m. It's usually like when people are waking up. And when I was waking up around 9:30 or 10, and right away I had people contacting me, it would like overwhelm me. Anyways, but yeah, so what I had to do is I would get overwhelmed and I would shut down. And honestly, I wouldn't really want to talk to anybody else. I would like kind of wait. And then I realized I wasn't being as productive. And so one thing about being introverted or extroverted is, and I had to find comfort in this, is that I'm naturally this way, if that makes sense. And if you understand how you naturally are, you don't want to just, change everything, because that's how you naturally are. What you want to do is you want to find a groove that works for you so that you can get the most out of who you are and how you are. So for me, it was creating that couple hours beforehand. So now I get up around 6 or 7 a.m., and that's plenty of time for me to, be relaxed, kind of get my thoughts together. Like, and I've always been like this. Like, you can ask my mom. I was one of those kids, like when you woke up in the morning, I didn't want to talk to you like right away. Like, why are you, I just woke up. You're talking to me, why? Like, I'm not even prepared to have a conversation with you right now. It doesn't matter what you were talking about. It would just be overwhelming in that moment. And so, that's my thing. So what are some of the things that somebody can speak on it? Let me know in the chat box who wants to speak. What are some of the things that you found works for you, and any example of how you found that what's the word, that groove for you? What are some of the things that you do? For me, it's extra time in the morning. What are some things that you do that allow you to, kind of ride with the groove rather than like just trying to trying to change the circumstances or change yourself. Let's hear from Marcy.
When I was feeling, or when I wake up feeling really stressed or like in a really bad mood, I just remember God telling me to like sit still and I'll meditate and like do some deep breathing. And whenever I will do that deep breathing, I feel so much calmer because I'm like breathing out the stress I was feeling or when I wake up or like the anger I was feeling. So that's always helped me to connect with myself and like my higher self. So
Okay, that's great. That's great. Let's hear from Drea. Love that.
Hey everyone. So one of the things that I started doing maybe like 2 months ago, I have a very detailed schedule. So I was watching a seminar and the guy was recommending I can't think of what the test is called, but it's you do it for 7 days and I just continue doing it after. But you write your day down in 30-minute increments. Even when you're asleep, you'll still say that, I'm asleep from whether my time is usually like 11 to 6, and you try to keep that schedule. So for every 30 minutes, like I will set an alarm so I'll know exactly what I'm doing. And in the beginning, it could feel tedious, like, oh my goodness, here's another alarm. But you actually get to see after the 7 days, like, where is your time going? Like, where could you really cut out areas and put more time to certain things? I'm gonna type in the chat. I'm gonna look when I finish talking the name of the experiment or whatever.
Yeah.
But something that I do in the morning, even if I have a ton of things to do for that day, because in the night, like the night before, I'll write down, the certain times that I have certain calls or certain to-dos or just anything. I'll kind of already have it written down. But no matter how many things I have to do for that day, I still take time for myself in the morning. So my schedule is pretty much I wake up, I'll read my Bible plan for the day. There's this app called Abide, which is pretty dope. They do let you get like a 7-day free trial, and then I think for the year it's like $30. It's definitely worth it because they have different guided meditations, and they're full meditations for so many topics. So, if you're familiar with the Bible plan, there's topics going on, what you're interested in. So it's kind of parallel to Abide. So the meditations are really, really helpful. From that, then I'll decide like for that day, I kind of like switch on and off if I'm going to do business first or if I'm going to read a book first. So it kind of just like, it really depends on my mood for that day. Some days I rather, start reading, and other days I'm more so like, with the business mind, let me do this first so that way in the evening I'll read. So just having a clear schedule definitely helps because you know what you have to do for that day, even if you're off track, like, okay, man, I should have did this 30 minutes ago, but you still have it written down so you know that it still needs to get done. Because if you just have everything floating in your head, it's kind of like it's confused. Is your mind can't even process what needs to get done if you can't even tell anybody or if you can't even write it down on paper yourself. So
And
that's something that I found to be helpful, as of lately.
that's really good because when you were talking, Drea, like I could see like how that makes sense because like on that chart that we looked at, it was like that. Introverted people, they're very like methodical. They're very like they're very thoughtful, like meaning they think deeper, right? And so having a detailed plan makes sense. And I'm thinking like I have a detailed schedule every single day, and when I wasn't doing it was when I was the most overwhelmed. So like for
Mm-hmm.
my introversion and being introverted is more like anxiety and being overwhelmed, right? Like and shut down. It's basically those three things: overwhelmed, anxiety, shut down. Like that's pretty much it. That's all there is to it. And so you're absolutely right in that because if that's how an introverted person thinks, because this is basically like how your mind is wired, and you don't provide like this guideline, your mind thinks it's like too much, right? Like your mind thinks it's like, okay, this is just out of whack. What do we do? Erica, did you have something to say? I see your hands raised. I can unmute you.
Oh, yes, love. I just wanted to answer your question. I feel like you can help my answer. A few weeks back, Bob Proctor, I had watched his event on live, the 3-day event, and Sandra, I can't remember her last name, but she was up there, and basically she was speaking on the things to do when you first get up in the morning. And I started doing this after his event, and it's helped me tremendously. So she said, when you first wake up, you're supposed to write down the 10 things that you're grateful for. So regardless if it's something that you're grateful for here now, such as, you know, you could have got a new car, homeowner, impacts people's lives, or something in the future, you know, I'm chairwoman 100, you know, me and my daughter, I'm bringing in 10,000 a month, you know, just whatever the case may be. It just by you consistently writing it down every morning, it just sticks that plan in your head and gives you motivation of what you're working towards throughout the day. And then she also stated that each morning take out at least 5 minutes of your time, 5 to 10 minutes, just to talk to God and just say, can you direct me of where you want me to go today? What lesson I'm supposed to learn today? Just not on all the days to come, but just for today, let me see what my purpose is.
That's good. That's good. And what I realized too, Erica, is that in that plan, see, like in a plan, it's crazy because I'm also like a people person, right? So it's like if I'm moving, I don't like too much structure. I kind of like to kind of go with the flow too, but I need some sort of guideline to keep me in line. And what I realize is that even if certain things may change in my schedule, just having the schedule alone, just like especially in the morning, because I'm one of those people, I believe, you know, how your morning starts is going to dictate your entire day. So when people ask me, what's your schedule like? And I tell them, like, really, my schedule is pretty free flowing. The most structure is in the morning because I realize if my morning is thrown off, like my whole day is thrown off. So one thing that Erica said and also Drea said is that having that schedule, that time put aside, because you can free flow within your schedule, and I think that's how you can be the most productive too. Kay, I think you said me, so I want to unmute you if you had something to say.
Yeah, I was definitely gonna agree with like having a calendar or a to-do list. I know for me, like I have to have a clean environment and I have to have things written down on my calendar, because if I just have too many things going on related to work and then the business and then trading and then family and then I'm trying to remember it all, I'm just like you. I'll shut down. I'll be like, you know what, I'll just go to sleep because it feels like it's too much. But when I have structure and my environment is clean, then I'm able to focus and I'm able to get things done. Like people come to my house and they're like, oh, you're a neat freak. And it's like, no, it's because I can't focus. Like if you come over and my house is a mess, you know I'm going through it. If you come over and like my closet a mess or my bed isn't made, you'll know that like, whoa, Kathleen, what's wrong? Because like when I have cleanliness and I'm able to function, or even if it's like I'm going on, like we're about to go to London, like my closet's about to be a mess. But in order for me to pack, like I have to clean it up right after, because I'll come back and I'll be like, I can't focus, and then I'll be thrown off. So like when I'm trying to focus on what I need to get done, I need to have things written down so I can check it off, because there's no better feeling than crossing something off knowing that it's done, even if it's like small things like brushing your teeth or just little things that you have to do around the house. When you cross it off, you feel like you accomplished something. And then when you feel like trying to get funny, when you feel like you accomplished something, it makes you want to do more. So like you don't always have to have all these major goals, because sometimes when a goal is so big and so far-fetched, you feel like you're not getting anywhere. But for me, when I have little things that I check off or little things that I do, it makes me feel good about myself, and I'm like, oh yeah, I got this done, like kudos to me. And then I'm motivated to do even more, versus just having like a giant long tour goal and I feel like I'm getting nowhere near it. So it's like when I'm able to check things off, the space is clean, I get a good workout, and like I'm ready to rock and roll. And I feel like that's when I'm really in my prime. But like if I'm lazy or I'm not working out or my room is a mess, you know something's wrong. Like it's just an automatic for me. So it's like a total mind, body, spirit, environment thing for me. Like
No, that's great. Like, and one key thing that you said was getting small things done. You know,
yeah,
one of my favorite quotes, it was actually, was it Bob Proctor? It might have been, no, it was Tony Robbins. And what he said is that we overestimate how much we can get done in a year, and we underestimate how much we can get done in 5. So basically, like, we put a lot on our plate and we're really overestimating. But if we were to slow the pace down, we would see that we could be more productive. Like this past week, I've been doing this thing where I don't do any multitasking, right? No multitasking. And it's been hard, I'm not gonna lie. So when I'm doing one thing, I do that one thing and I don't do anything else. And this is gonna segue into our next question that I have. but I do one thing and I don't do anything else. And until I'm done with that thing, I won't move on to do another thing. So literally, like I think it was the day before yesterday. Actually, it was yesterday. I was on the phone. I mean, I was cleaning for 2 hours. Like, so when you was talking, Kat, I literally was like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Because I just was like, I cannot think. Like, my room has been
Exactly.
messy because we travel so much. I was like, my room has been messy for like weeks. I can't take it no more. I'm scrubbing everything. It took me like 2 hours, maybe
But
three.
don't you feel great now? Like you
Yes,
could
I
think
do.
get
I
things done.
really
You
want
looking for something to do. Like what should I do today? Like
to,
ready.
but I didn't do any work. I didn't really even answer any calls until the end, until I was done. And Martez was even asking me like, "What did you do this morning?" And I was like, "Clean." Like that's really what I did. I just spent the whole morning cleaning, but it was literally because I couldn't move on, you know. And I think what you said, like doing something, like doing the small goals, you know, and then taking on the bigger goals, you know, because it encourages you because you're like, I got that done, I got that done, I got that done. Now, one thing that Drea said in the chat box, and this is going to go into our next question, it was so perfect. She said, it's also really good to have a cutoff time to give your mind a rest. No matter the circumstances, after that time, you don't conduct any business. After that time, use it for yourself and decompress, relax for bedtime. Now, one thing that I've noticed about introverted people, or I'll just say myself, one thing that I've noticed is that it's a little bit more difficult to enforce boundaries for me, you know, and I think it does have to do with more so of my introverted personality, because it seems as if um sometimes you have those thoughts of like, oh man, like if I do this, then it's gonna cause this, you know, or if I do this, this person's gonna feel like this. Even if they don't, you don't wanna. I don't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable. That's why I don't kick people out my house. You know, I don't want anybody to feel like I don't like them. That's why I don't tell people I'm ready to get off the phone. You know, like so it puts you in a space where you're constantly thinking about other people and it's making you uncomfortable. So I think why that was so good, Drea, is because for me, it was hard sometimes, and it's still hard at times to enforce boundaries, meaning that after this time, you have to go home, you know, or after this time, even now, like sometimes my leaders will call me, and if it's after my cutoff time is like 11. So if you call me after 11 or text me after 11, it's hard for me, but I force myself to wait until the next morning, and not when I wake up either. It's once I'm done doing my morning routine, which is around 10, which is the time I told you guys most people contact me. So even though I'm up and I might be even posting on Instagram, I might be even and I still be feeling bad. Like I was like, oh my God, I did not text this person back, but I want to get this post off. And then I saw this one meme. I love memes, y'all, clearly. But I saw this one meme and it was like, yes, I'm posting on Instagram, and no, I didn't text you back. This is my phone. And I just thought it was hilarious because I literally was like, for real, like this is my phone. I should be able to do whatever I want. Like, period. So the question that I have is what are some boundaries that you had to set or some boundaries that you want to set that are going to encourage you to kind of not step into being an extrovert, but just to step into a more comfortable zone. Does anybody want to speak on that? Something that you want to do or something that you have done, like those examples. Okay, let's hear it. And can you tell me how to say your name?
So, hi, I'm Rakia.
Rakia. Nice to meet you, Rakia.
Okay, so for me, with certain people, I only talk to them ever so often, and they kind of understand now that I only have so much energy to put into that, and it's okay. But like for instance, my relationship with my dad, like we have a Saturday call. It's about for 45 minutes, and he knows that. And so if it's after that time or something happens, like we'll let each other know to reschedule. But like that's a call that is set, you know. And same thing like with my best friends, and even being in this business, like certain people know, like now, even if, like you said, I know the meme that you're talking about. And when I saw it, I was like, that is me. There is a certain like time where I'm just like, look, I need time for myself because if I'm not fully together, then I can't help anyone else. And that's a boundary and a lesson that I'm currently learning within the past like couple months. But since implementing those boundaries, it's been super helpful and I don't feel drained all the time.
That's good. That's good because not only are you practicing boundaries for yourself, but you're so right. Like, you're not drained anymore, And sometimes it's like we want to give, but when you're drained, you're like less inclined to be you. Like you're even like less happy about doing things that would usually make you happy because you may be feeling like I don't have much to give. Let's hear from you, Bianca.
Okay, so mine was like saying no, because I always say yes to everything, or like I'm always giving stuff, or I'm always giving my time when I shouldn't be. So I had to learn to say no more and not feel bad about it, basically, because I would feel bad if I say no. So that was one thing that I started implementing, and I feel so much better. Like I can focus on things that pertain to me more. Even if somebody gets mad, I'm just like, look, I need to do this for myself.
Yes, no, that's good. Especially, because we're also women, so we're also emotional too. So it's like, oh, everything just seems to be like, oh, that just hurt them. Oh my God, I just let them down. But you're right, you find this power in like getting your control back. And it's like, okay, I can do these boundary things. I can do this. Okay, let's hear from you, Maya. Hold on. There we go.
Can you hear me now?
There we go. Got you.
Okay. Y'all, I have business hours, okay? Because I'm a full-time entrepreneur and I work full-time too. So, like, it gets draining. So what I started to do is, like, I don't text anybody back after, like, 9 o'clock. And then, I answer messages and calls after 9 a.m. And then I stop answering messages and calls after 10 p.m. Just because, like, out since I work so much and I'm also a full-time entrepreneur, it was kind of hard. Like I started getting drained and I didn't want to do anything. So I was like, you know what? I'm about to start doing business hours on business days. And occasionally I'll do like Saturdays and Sundays. But yeah, I feel like you just gotta set like boundaries every day. Like it can't just be like yeah. You just gotta set boundaries every day. But
And
yeah.
how did it take you to like, was it easy at first, Maya? Like what was like your process to where you are now? Like were you having some of those emotions? Was it simple or was it easy?
It was a no-brainer because I had to put myself first. Because for me, I always want to help people, and sometimes that can be draining. But I had to realize, like, my health is wealth. So it's like I had to put myself first. So it wasn't to me. It was easy. So I was like, nah. If I'm gonna help other people, how am I supposed to help other people if I can't even help myself? So yeah.
That's good. That's good. Marcy?
So I've just started like having to give boundaries for myself because at first I was just giving so much energy to other people and it was just draining me. Even at work I was doing that. And I had to stop and just think about me. Like I wanted to stay at my job for so long because it was, I thought it was going to help me, but it was just draining me till yesterday. I put my 2 weeks in and I had a whole weight lifted off my shoulders because I had to let that stress go. And I've gotten so many opportunities today at church because it's the first time I've been to church in like 4 or 5 weeks. And it was like overwhelming because I was like, I'm not putting up with this no more. Like I have to let this go and just let God and just have faith in that. And I've had so much joy of just setting my boundaries and thinking of myself first so I can help others. So yeah.
Love it. Drea?
So this kind of goes back to what I kind of mentioned earlier about the schedule. So I have my phone on Do Not Disturb from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Now, do I check it certain times throughout? Yes, but I already know who I have to talk to that day, kind of before the day is starting. So they're already blocked off. So I'm not, and I call people. You don't call me, I'm calling you at a certain time, and that's already agreed upon before the day has come. So that definitely helps. So I don't really feel like I'm being pulled in too many directions throughout the day because it's kind of already pretty structured. Now, do things happen? Yes, they do. That's why I do check my phone, maybe every couple hours or whatnot. Especially if I'm trading, I do check it to see, what's going on because, it's not just my money. You know, I'm helping other people make money too. So I put that, you know, above, but I kind of put that in the business quadrant in my mind. So it's not really something that I feel like I'm pulling away from, especially this is something, you know, that I'm proud of, something that I'm working towards to increase. So it's something that I do prioritize. But when I do feel myself being pulled in a way or in a conversation that I feel is just not conducive to what I have going on, for example, so I have a best friend, and she, I don't know, she calls me every time like this girl posts something on Instagram. She's like, did you see her post? And I'm like, now you know I'm not even about to entertain this conversation. And I would just say, I was like, nope, we're not doing no gossiping. Nope, we're not doing no gossiping. And a person can't really be mad at you. They're gonna sit back and just be like, you know what? I am gossiping. You know what? I shouldn't be gossiping. Why am I gossiping? And it's funny because our conversations have progressed to the point that she's like, nope, we're not doing any gossiping. I'm like, okay, you're starting to get it now. You just kind of have to set that standard for other people so they know not to even come to you with the foolishness. So you don't even have to entertain it, as opposed to like, what should I respond? They already know that you're not the person to call to entertain anything that's negative, anything that isn't, you know, progressive in whatever way that you're trying to progress. So that definitely helps. Just drawing a hard line. Was it hard in the beginning? Just because I have been so used to giving and giving and giving, and I just kind of just, you know, decided, and I put in the chat, it's a constant reminder, like, you have to put yourself first, because if you don't make sure that you're full, that you're capable, how can you pour what you have into somebody else's cup if you're constantly drained, if you're constantly stressed, if you're constantly worried? So I look at it as, you know, I'm taking care of myself so that I could be in a position to take care of other people. So it's not really a bad thing anymore, because, you know, when we don't put ourselves first, we feel bad about it. And it's just like, you shouldn't feel bad about something that you're doing that's going to better you in the long run. So that definitely helps. Do not disturb is my best friend, y'all. It helps.
D&D. Okay.
I just wanted to say that I love that too, because like a lot of times when we're starting off this journey where we want to focus on ourselves, it's very uncomfortable, especially like when you have family or friends who you talk to all the time. So when you're going from conversation to conversation where people just gossip about the day or tell you about their boyfriend or just like pour all this negative energy into you, then when it's time to have a good conversation, you tired, you're ready to hang up the phone. Like, so it's a transition period, and sometimes it's like, wait, like, I'm not about to stay on the phone for an hour, because it's so easy to just pick up the phone and sit there and talk. Next thing you know, 2 hours went by, but the conversation wasn't productive. But when you're transitioning from that to using your time more wisely and actually like having healthy conversations or talking to people who are gonna better you, it's rough. Like at first you're like, wait, like you feel like you're cutting somebody off, or you feel like, oh, you like, they'll be like, oh, why aren't you talking to me? Or, oh, you don't pick up the phone anymore. But it's, you can't feel like you're being mean or that you're not talking to them, but you're really leveling yourself up, and you're making time and room for things that are actually going to benefit you. Because you could sit on the phone and gossip for an hour, but what's that doing for you? Or you could sit on the, you can be reading for an hour, you can be talking to people who you can uplift, you could you could get uplifted from others. So it's like when you're going through that phase, your family might be like, girl, where are you? Or your best friend might be like, oh, like, you're holding off, like what's going on between us? But you can't let that hinder you or stop you, because ultimately you're in it for the long run, for your growth and your health. And when you're getting drained and pulled, you're not able to pour into people or get poured into, because then you're tired. When you have a ton of conversations and they drain you, you just in a negative mood. Like, you over here thinking about drama, you over here thinking about the next person's problem, and now you don't really have time to deal with what you have to deal with, or situations that you have to face, or focus on the daily battles that you have, because you over here trying to carry Stacy's and Jessica and Jim and John's battles on your shoulder, and you feel weighed down. You feel like you have so much that you're dealing with. But when you cut the conversation short, like Drea said, then you take that bag off of you, and you don't feel weighed down. You don't feel like you have the world on your shoulder. So I love how Drea brought that up, because sometimes that's a hard topic for people, because you feel like you leaving someone behind, or you cutting somebody off, or you hurting someone. But ultimately, you're helping yourself out. So it's a process, but it's worth it.
And Kat, you just made me remember the point that I was trying to make earlier too, that if you do decide to, do the increments of writing down your day every 30 minutes, it helps you too, because especially if you're honest with yourself, don't do it if you don't want to be honest with yourself. Like, man, I just talked to my best friend for an hour and a half. Now you got that written in 3 different slots. And it's something that you're going to have to look at, for the rest of the week. And it's like, man, why was I on the phone for an hour and a half? I don't even remember what we were talking about for an hour and a half. So it kind of provides a motivation for you to use your time more frequently. More useful in the future. So it's good when you do that whole schedule thing, because you see, what mistakes you made the day before and how you can actually better, the next day. But that's it.
No, these are such a great conversation. And that's why I wanted to open up the live for this conversation, because I feel like we don't talk about this side of it enough, and I also don't feel like, it's talked about enough, because, we just see these different personalities, these different faces, and we just assume, and so I think it's such an important conversation. And before we hop off, because we actually got to get on another call at 9. If you guys don't know, Justin Owens is having a training tonight at 9. But I want to leave you guys with this, because it has blessed me so much. I posted about it on my story earlier, but the things that we're talking about, I always knew these things. Okay, so I knew these things, but I wasn't walking in these things. I wasn't practicing these things. I wasn't enforcing these things. Boundaries wasn't a new topic for me, but it was new for me to actually implement and enforce in my life. And you're absolutely right. It gives you power. It gives you control. And this sermon series by Darius Daniels, you guys can look it up on YouTube. He did a 4-part series about putting people in their place. And when I tell you that this series has set me free in so many areas, I didn't watch the whole series in a day. I watched over a course of a couple of days. And when I tell you guys that this series has changed my entire life, this YouTube series at that, and he talks about so much about putting people in their place. And what happens is, and this was a quote on Instagram I read, is that when you haven't practiced setting boundaries in your life, there's a lying thought that comes in your mind. And basically the quote says to keep doing it anyway, because you're going to feel guilty. You're going to feel like you are being harsh. You might even feel like, I'd rather be uncomfortable than enforce my boundary. You might have those feelings, but fight through them and continue to walk in it anyway, because that's what I love about being an introverted leader. You are a silent storm, and storms are named after women, as you guys know. And it's because we are powerful. We have the ability to shake, to move, to completely tear down and build right back up, right? And so I definitely want to encourage you guys, take time out and, watch one of them. He has 4 of them. One of them is called Who's at Your Table? The second one is called Friends. Like, what about your friends? The third one is We're Not That Close. And then the fourth one is The Ministry of a Mentor. So for those on the line who are actually in I Am Academy, The Ministry of a Mentor was a beautiful one as well to end the series. And this series really allowed me to get really, really serious about these things, because if we're not serious about these things, these boundaries that we're talking about, it's going to obstruct your productivity. It's going to obstruct your sensitivity, and it's going to obstruct you really walking in who you are. And this call was basically to encourage the introverted leaders, to encourage the introverted people that you are made perfect. You are made beautiful by design. And there is something very specific and very needed about your personality type, about how you think, how you're wired. And when we become comfortable and when we become secure in how we were wired, then we're able to move in full purpose and full power. Because as much if we in the places where we try to be different or try to transform or try to, clash, what you're doing, that's what you're doing, you're clashing, rather than let's move in harmony with who we are. But since we are natural givers, since we are natural people who pour out, people who feel things deeply, the best thing that you could do is set yourself up with the correct boundaries. Because there's nothing wrong with how we feel or how we think. There's just, as we've talked about tonight, certain ways that you want to go about doing that. And that series really broke it down for me. So I really appreciated this call, an amazing talk. Next Sunday, it'll be a whole different topic. We'll have a whole different host. I'm just the first host. And I can't wait until next week. I hope you guys join again. And we're going to do this every single Sunday until the girls' tour actually starts. If you don't know about the girls' tour, follow our Instagram. And definitely get plugged in with us and stay tuned with us. We're real women. We get real results. We're in real business. We have real children, real families. So I appreciate you guys for getting on this call. I will send out the recording. You guys can just ask for it, and then I could love to send it to you, or ask whoever invited you, and they'll send it to you as well. So appreciate you, ladies. Have a great rest of the night. My I Am leaders, I'll see you guys on the training call.